Everyone needs life cover, and the amount you need is very specific to you as an individual. People with debt, like for instance a bond or a mortgage, will definitely need life cover because you do not want to leave your loved ones with debt if something happens to you. If you have financial dependence, like for instance if you're married and your wife doesn't work, or you have children or maintenance to pay or anything like that, you'll need life cover because there will be certain things that you need to pay after your death and continue to pay for the people who stay behind. So things that will play a role in how much you'll need is the amount of debt, the amount of the income that you earn, because you need to replace that income for your loved ones when you pass away. So if you have financial dependence, the amount that you need will be determined depending on how old you are, the term that you need to provide for, and the amount of income you need to replace if something should happen to you. If you're a business owner, you probably need some life cover in the business as well. And remember, the younger you are, the cheaper it is, and the less underwriting requirements and restrictions there will be. Underwriting is basically when they look at your health and your age and your smoker status and your salary and your qualification and all those things to determine if you qualify for cover. The next thing you need to know is that cover doesn't cost the same for everyone. So the things I just mentioned will play a role with regards to how much it will cost you. The younger you are, cheaper. If you smoke, much more expensive. If you're married and you have debt to cover and not a high salary or income, might be a bit more expensive for someone that's got very little debt and a high income and they have a high qualification. It might be a bit cheaper. All the companies have different things that they look at as well when they determine the cost. So rates aren't the same with all the insurance companies either. It's important to get different quotes. They also have different exclusions. Some companies might not cover hazardous pursuits, for instance, like skydiving and things like that, while other companies won't even bother to ask. Some companies will cover globally all over the world, and other companies will only cover if something happens to you in South Africa. So it's very important to look at these things. And the beneficiary nominations, make sure that you nominate a beneficiary to make sure that person receives it. Because if it goes through your estate, it will take much longer for the cover to pay out because then the executor must deal with it in the estate and they first need to be appointed and that's a long process. Make sure the structure is right because sometimes you get some exclusions for estate duty, which is a tax you pay in South Africa when you pass away on all your assets. If, for instance, the policyholder and the payer is not the same, or if the policyholder and the life assured is the same but the beneficiary is someone else, or if a third party is the owner of a policy, all those things play a role, and the company that you buy the product from will have specific rules with regards to who will it pay for, when will it pay, how long it will take, how much it will pay, things like that. Think, for instance, if you need to cede a policy to the bank if they want it for security. Some companies won't pay it to the estate then because the bank needs to get it first. And then the balance will get paid to the estate and paid then to the heirs according to the will, which then makes the period for the heir to receive the money much longer than if they were a direct beneficiary. That's just important things to find out. Then the cost is not the same as already mentioned. Your underwriting will play a role and you have to ask different quotes in order to compare those costs. And the term, you have either a whole of life policy or just a term to cover the debt. And this is sometimes where if you go to a bank and you take out their cover, it is more like a debt insurance because the moment that debt ends, the policy ends. While if you take it out with an insurance company, you can opt for it to be whole of life and the cost difference is not that big. And it means that even if your debt is paid off, you can keep that money and maybe just amend the policy slightly in order to use it for a different purpose, like looking after your children and your spouse when you pass away. Then the last thing I want to talk about is that I mentioned cheap, it could be expensive, is that sometimes people think that if they go directly to an insurance company, it will be cheaper. And yes, if the insurance company is a direct kind of insurer where they don't use advisors or brokers or intermediaries or whatever you want to call them, that might be cheaper because there's no commission that needs to be paid to that intermediary. But you must read carefully. There might be exclusions blanket exclusions, because it's sometimes this insurance that you can just buy over the phone. They don't ask a lot of questions. They give you the cover. They say you covered immediately. But go read the fine print. Certain things like pre-existing conditions might be excluded for a whole 12 months or longer, depending on the type of cover that you're buying. So you might think it's cheaper and quicker and easier, but you have all those exclusions you wouldn't have had if you've gone through the underwriting process. Because if underwriting happens at application stage, it doesn't happen at claim stage. They just compare it to what you've been underwritten for. If there's no underwriting at application stage, then at claim stage, they can say, ugh, you've had this before you applied. Or they can find an excuse not to pay. Okay, so be careful. Buying cheap could be expensive. And also, if you go directly to an insurance company, they probably use an intermediary anyway. You just don't know it because it's one of their own consultants, so there are some commission paid and included in your price anyway. Okay, but the disadvantage for that is that they can only sell their own product. So you have no opportunity to compare it to another company's product and see if the benefits, the definitions, the underwriting, the cost, all of that is perhaps more in your need or suited to your specific individual needs. So it's best to try and find an individual that's independent and can do quotes at various companies for you so you can see what's the best for yourself and your family. Thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe.